foundation.
It does.
Once you get the foundation done, then it's just like, that's
foundation is a big step. Once you get past that, you get like the subfloor started.
Right.
That's when things start to escalate and things go quicker. Putting the walls up was such a quick process for us to do. And when we did that, things started to, develop. They started to move a lot quicker. That's when, we did the rafters and everything for the house and such. And that, once we got the roof on, everything else wrapped up, we were pretty good to go.
I cannot watch y'all do that. I'm afraid of heights.
So whenever you're figuring out your homestead, another piece of advice would be to map out what it is that you want to do. What is your 1-year plan, your 3-year plan? Everyone talks about these things for like your work life, or your personal life. But on your homestead, you really need a short-term vision and a long-term vision.
You should have goals.
Right. What do you see a year down the road? I want to be here, and then write that down.
Yep.
So you can keep track of where you're at to get to your goal. Now, if I were to go do a complete goal setting video, which would be a video into itself, I would tell you something to the effect of figure out where your goal is and then break it down into its big pieces, and then what do you need to do at each stage to get the big piece done, and then see, is that achievable in that year time span. Right. But if we're talking again in this broad strokes, that's kind of what we're looking at. But then 3 years down the road, where do you see yourself? Because if you're not careful, your progress can stall.
Oh yeah.
Where you just don't continue to move forward at all. You're just maintaining what you have. And there are times it does feel like that even here, even though we're moving.
We're still moving, but it feels like we're not.
Right. It sometimes feels like that.
I've experienced that.
I have too.
And that's normal, but that's where it's important is break down your goals so you can see the little things you've done.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's easy to get burnout.
It is. Well, for example, actually seeing the foundation that we did here, we have a tangible structure that we can start to touch and feel and recognize and say, okay, there is. This has become real to us.
It's becoming more real to us.
It's no longer a concept.
It is coming.
It's becoming a reality. And that's important because you will feel like I'm not really making much progress. But then you look around. Well, you know what? We did build the goat shelter.
Yeah.
But still didn't feel like it,
Right. We're making progress in these different areas. But even if you don't feel like it, you can still look around, or you can still look back on your list and say, okay, well, we did this, we did this, we did this. And that will keep you encouraged.
Right.
It will keep you encouraged so that you continue to move forward.
And that's what helps with our projects that we do too now, is that each person all of us have been trained now, and we know how to do different things now. Like me and the kids, like if you was at work, we're done with school, we can come out and clear the area and have most of it already cleared out and ready within a couple days. Whenever you come home from work, you can help and bang it out even more in the weekend, and we can have a spot cleared out within a couple days ready to build.
So whenever we were working on building the house, one of the first things that I tried to do was to duplicate whatever knowledge that I had learned or acquired or possessed with them so they could start to do these things too. So one of the first things that I taught you how to do, you remember?
Really? I don't know, it was one of it.
Whenever we were working on the house.
Oh, we're working on the house?
And
Concrete,
but then when we start...
No, corner setting.
Yeah,
so
how to do corners, how to set those.
Setting square, and...
once we got the floor done, once the floor was done, once the subfloor was done, what do we do next? Walls. And remember I showed you how to frame out walls? And
setting center and everything.
And so I was able to put, her and, her grandfather basically to work on doing, the wall framing, through part of it. Where I would come along and help them, okay, this is what we did.
So each wall was
Here's where we're at this point, and I can look at it and say, okay, that will work or no, that won't, or you got to do it a little bit different here because of, and then I could teach her it need to be done this way. Instead for that particular instance, but otherwise they could lay it out. They could go ahead and and basically start nailing it up, and then once it was ready, we could all come together and lift the wall section.
Yeah, that's when it really started feeling like we was coming somewhere.
Like I learned how to knit the studs, how to put them on center, because we did like 16-inch studs.
Yes.
And we did that at the top plate, the bottom plate. Also not just like what they are, but like by name as well, definition. Sure. Like how to put the windows together. Like you had like the king stud. You had like the different things that were put in place for that, even for like the door and stuff. It's very similar, but there was still differences.
So we started working through that. Taught them how to build headers. How to put your the cripples in.
Yep.
So all of that, we were able to basically duplicate. I had a skill set that I had been able to learn through the process of watching, learning, doing, and then in turn pass that along to other people too, and say, okay, now here's how we do that, and still maintain some level of supervision so that it doesn't go completely off the rails.
Not only you had to teach them how to build, you had to teach them how to run the tools too.
Sure. So we did all that, and then as we moved along through each section, once we got to the interior and it came time to put insulation up.
Oh, our girl just loves some insulation.
She can knock out insulation like nobody's business and do a great job at it too.
Yeah.
I'm talking about not just like stuff it in, but actually like make the right cuts to go around outlets and things. I mean, really did a phenomenal job there. I was very impressed with her level of detail at that work on doing that. And a lot of people new to doing that would not have necessarily thought about, okay, I need to do it this way. Even without me showing her that part, she just instinctively picked it up and did a great job at it too. So since then, whenever we work on other insulation projects, I've got her right there with me. Okay, now let's knock this insulation out. And that allows me to duplicate my skill set, my abilities, with someone who's capable and willing to learn and willing to execute and do it properly.
And sheetrock.
Sheetrock. Different wall boards. So whenever we're working on the rock board, tile, all these things that we're working on, it's about trying to teach. So don't think that just because you are a homesteader and you've got kids who are younger that they can't pitch in.
Oh yeah, they can.
And that they can't do things. Don't be afraid to teach them. All right, don't be afraid to teach them. If they possess the aptitude and the willingness to learn, let them learn. And you know what? It's just like any adult. All right. The first time you do it, it's probably not going to be perfect. It's not going to be different for a teenager. If they're learning it the first time, it may not look the prettiest. It may not look the best.
It's like starting to draw for somebody.
Yeah.
But then again, before it's all said and done, they might be doing it better than you can.
Oh yeah. True. Very true.
So don't hold them back. Teach them. Let them learn. Let them try to apply the skills. And
these are skills that will last them a lifetime, though, too.
Absolutely. And as time goes on, they're going to get better. So the first time you do it, first time that we laid out the foundation for the house, it took us a long time to lay it out, to dig up all of the pads, pouring the building, doing the concrete work, putting the blocks. I mean, it was a very lengthy process that took us almost 2 months from the time that we began with our batter boards until the time that we were tearing the batter boards down. It was about 2 months to do all that.
And it took what?
About a month to do what we did up here.
Yeah.
Or about half the time.
Always fighting against weather too.
And
that was
considering all the things that we had going on too, because we've been pretty busy with other things and activities. Like we did this pretty good in ample time, I think. Always.
Absolutely. So we were able to knock this out in a significantly protracted time period.
Yeah.
So a much better time period than what we had experienced before.
It's a good thing.
It is, and I really am glad that we were able to achieve this as quickly as we did. Now we're at the point to where we're going to start our subfloor pretty soon, and then once the subfloor is done, then we're going to start wall framing. And once we get to that point, this structure is going to come together very, very quickly.
But even when we built the other house, this is also gives us something to be more excited about because we know how fast it's going to go too once we start doing that.
Yeah.
And that's when we were less experienced than we are now. So we know how it's going to go.
Right. So and we know, and we have access to tools and resources we didn't have even then.
That's true.
Like power.
Yeah, we didn't have power.
So,
we was building, there was no power.
We were using the generator at the time.
Yeah.
If we need electricity, and that was the challenge. Now, after about 2 months of us doing the work, we did have power because we qualified at that point after we had the foundation done. We were ready to go in and get temporary service here.
That was awesome. possible.
Some parts of the country, you can get temporary service just by calling up your local power company and doing a temporary pole set, and you're good to go.
Well, we was told that, yeah, you can get power, and yeah, you can get water and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, cool.
When we checked out locally that we could get these things, we were told one set of one set of information. When it came time to do it, it was something else.
Yes.
Completely else.
Now, whether that was, our lack of knowledge of asking the right questions, or whether it was the individual's lack of forthcoming in terms of what was involved.
That's debatable.
I'll give you an example here. When we first were looking at doing the house, I wanted to run underground service to the house. And to do that, we were told that we had to have so many feet cleared for the easement for the power. We had to have the foundation to a certain point. We had to have all these other things done. Once we got to that point, I called the power company up and said, "Okay, I'm ready. Ready? Okay." It comes out, looks at everything. Okay, well, now you need when are you digging your trench? I'm like, excuse me.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that was something the utility company did, because they also do the same thing. I should say they run the power lines overhead on their own. So I thought that if you met all these other requirements, that they also come along and dug out the trench for underground service.
But that was not the case.
As long as it was under a certain budget. That's the key. We were told, here's the budget. We will go up to this point, and it's free. If it goes beyond that, it's on thee. Exactly. Okay, on me.
We made sure we tried
to
stay
we did everything we could to make sure we were within those parameters. And then it came time, oh no, we don't actually dig the trench. You have to dig the trench.
We're responsible for that.
And I'm like, well, wait a second.
Right,
so we're doing all the other work. And then we started researching what it would take to actually dig the trench and all the other requirements. And it was not going to be possible to dig a trench that would be 4 feet deep to be able to run underground service. Now, I don't fault the individual who gave us the information. I'm not saying it was his fault. I'm saying that was an information
that needed to be told.
Right. That was an information miss. My part, their part, whatever. It was. If I had actually been perhaps doing that for a living, I would have already had that knowledge. If I were someone who had familiarity at least with it beyond this local area, I might have known how to ask these questions, and that would have been better. If they could have also volunteered that information.
Yeah, but they didn't volunteer it at all neither.
No.
I would have told you.
Maybe he thought he did. Okay, he's a great guy.
He's really
nice. Maybe he thought he did. I don't fault him for that. I'm not saying it was his fault.
Everyone makes mistakes.
I mean, the reality is that it is, regardless of how we look at it, it was a piece of information that I didn't possess at that time. Now, once he told us, okay, then that changed
everything.
Changed things a little bit. All right.
Tremendous.
So now we have to do this, that, find out, okay, we can't, we had to widen out the electrical easement, because now we're going from underground utility service to above ground utility service. And there were different rules. And we had already complied with about 90 to 95% of those. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have much to do, okay? It's not like we had to start from scratch. It wasn't. But it does point out how that sometimes you're going down the road and you think you're almost to your destination, and then a block before you get to your destination, there's a detour.
Oh, yeah.
That sometimes happens. In fact, it frequently happens when you're homesteading.
Oh, yes. All the time.
I'm all the time telling them, you know what? I can see down the road, but I can't see over the hill.
Over the hill, yeah.
I can't see around the curve. And I say that to them to remind them, you know what? This is the plan that we're going after right now.
Or sometimes you'll see that thing above the road, but you got a funeral ahead of you because they're talking to you forever.
Right. You don't necessarily know until you get there what you're going to encounter. The stopped car could be just, could be the mail carrier, or it could be a funeral procession.
Exactly.
You never know.
The funeral procession.
You don't know.
Forever.
So you may, you can look down the road as far as you would like to, but the reality is that you will never see everything.
No.
So it is important to be adaptable. All right.
think moving out here to help us adapt to
It
things
does.
a lot quicker than we used to.
Oh yeah.
You're going to have to adapt to change because change is going to happen.
Constantly.
I adapted like this, but hey, I did.
And when it happens, you're going to need to be resilient enough to handle that change.
Yeah, you do. You really
But not
do.
just like physically, but mentally and emotionally as
Yeah.
well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally.
You might be physically able to handle the change. You're strong, you're young, you're able to handle
Yeah,
that.
mentally and emotionally.
But can you handle it up here?
Yeah.
You know,
It's a
that's
lot.
the
It's a
thing.
struggle.
It's a struggle.
And how do you keep everybody else engaged while you're getting them to it? Because if you're leading your family, you might be able to do it.
What about the rest of you?
But what about the rest of your family?
But you know what? Like I always says, put God first.
Put God first, absolutely. Have a plan in place. You know, talk and communicate amongst yourselves. You know, try to figure out solutions as a family so that everybody's involved.
Communication is very important.
Very, very important communication.
So don't assume that the opinion and the insight of others is necessarily not valid, or that it's going to be the same as your own. You know, go ahead and get that information.
Meetings and talk about things.
Get that communication out there. Talk amongst yourselves. Figure out ways of solving problems. Bring them along for the journey. Parents, I would say this too: if you got kids, bring your kids into those discussions. Now, at the end of the day, parents, you're the decision maker.
Yeah.
Mom and dad, you're the one who makes the decision.
But still, you
She
want
knows
to
that
keep
we
them
make the
involved.
decision at the very end.
Yeah.
Her brother knows that we make the decision at the
Don't
very
make
end.
them feel they're left out.
But we want to incorporate them into the decision-making process as much as we reasonably can. You know, so that they develop these skills too.
Yes.
So they see how we problem solve. They see that we are resilient enough to be able to handle the stress that's put upon us.
Right.
Because if they're not seeing that, if they're seeing that, okay, mom and dad, they're not really telling me anything, I don't know what, then the lack of knowledge, the lack of information is going to cause them to wonder, you
They
know,
think they're keeping a secret.
Sure.
Well, we don't keep secrets.
or it's not going to work out. You know, things are not good. You know, there's going to be problems. In the lack of good insight and the lack of good information, ignorance is allowed to blossom.
Yeah.
So involve your family in the discussions. You know, it may even be good to have a once a week, every other week, once a month meeting, whatever it takes, just to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be something that's always booked on the calendar that you keep as an actual.
Like
We can't miss this one appointment.
No, like I always say, come on, y'all, we'll have a powwow, and they know that we'll be talking about like
Sure.
what's our next building project, or this is our plan, and you know we need to make sure I need to keep the calendar clear during this time because you
Right.
want to do some things that we need to do here on the homestead, because time is very important, and plus I want the kids to enjoy life too, so we have things and events that the kids are involved in too that we do other than homesteading.
Seasonality is also a factor. So knowing what you're going to do in the spring, summer, fall, winter, you know, you have to think about how weather impacts your decision making and your plans.
Yes.
So okay, July is going to be 105 degrees for the low. Okay, maybe not, but it's going to be hot.
Humidity's gonna be skyrocketed.
Right, you're going to be swimming outside in the humidity because of how bad it
It's
is.
been humid today.
It
So-
has been, but chill out some.
Under those conditions, you know that, okay, I'm not going to be able to do perhaps a foundation project where I'm
No,
digging it out by hand.
No, that's why we chose to do it like we did now.
Right. Okay, probably January is not the ideal time to be outside digging it out by hand either, whenever it's snow or
No.
It's like
the
an
ground's
ice storm.
frozen or whatever else. So you know that. So you've got to consider some seasonality to your planning too. Planting. That comes into it. So there's lots of stuff, lots of moving pieces here. But my point here, as it relates to this, is that planning ahead is more than just we have to do something here by this date and this time. You need to take into account all of these pieces that are moving, all the little wheels that are moving here.
But try to keep organized as possible.
Right.
too.
Try to keep organized as good as you can.
I love things organized.
Are your kids in school? Are they going to a local school? Are they going to a Christian school? Are they going to a homeschool? Whatever the case may be, these are factors that you've got to consider
Yeah.
too. How do you keep them engaged in their school activities while also doing all of this over here.
It was hard to do that in the beginning.
It was.
It was really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, especially with no internet and no power and stuff, so we went more paper-based for a while until we finally got the internet.
And then I would go with
figured
him and go to the
Right.
office and stuff and do school.
So the office in town, we had internet there, and she would accompany me to the office and work on her school there. Sometimes my son, they would come down there. We would do things on the weekends down there too. At the time, we didn't have internet here. Going down there, just basically taking a day off.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to have a day off.
Sometimes we just spend time up there watching movies.
Right. We would just go to the office and watch a movie.
Play video games. Y'all like playing video games?
Like that, when we first played video games the first time in forever, that was insane. That was so crazy.
So just being able to do something like that is a big morale boost, and it keeps people realizing, you know what, it's not all just hard work. Mom and dad aren't slave drivers. We're trying to do this. We're united as a family. It's not right. It's not child labor.
Which some people
It's not. It's about teaching skills and replicating your skills, amongst other people and seeing what they're good at. This move out here has been very beneficial because it's allowed our kids to be able to grow in ways they would not have been able to have grown if we would have retained our normal old lifestyle.
Oh yeah,
where we were at before.
Our son, we've seen that he has so many talents that he's a tinker. You maybe been hearing him in the background hammering and making some noise. He's tinkering. He's doing something. He's making the stuff from extra materials around the property, and he's building something or doing something. I don't know what he's doing right now, but he's doing something.
And so that's very beneficial for their development. Alyssa's been able to grow and develop and be able to get some new skills as a result of being out here. Things that she would not have been able to have done before. She never would have been building a foundation or framing up walls. If
she would have been working on cars at least.
Probably, but still, there would be deficiencies in these skill sets, things that she's been able to grow and develop now that she can implement throughout her life if she needs to or desires.
Stuff I can give to my future kids one day.
Absolutely.
Or if my husband doesn't know.
Even teach your husband.
These things.
Absolutely. Our son, he's been able to learn about how to repair small engines, 2-cycle engines.
He loves that.
My weed eater, I'm having to fix it right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's four-wheelers.
And what we do is we give them the autonomy to be able to work on these things within certain parameters.
Yeah.
Knowing where the borders and the boundaries are at in life is very important.
Very important.
Setting boundaries, knowing what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and maintaining those boundaries in a good, healthy way is very important in life. We know what we're willing to do here on the homestead, what things that we're willing to allow, people will allow into our life, and maintain those boundaries is very important to us. It's very important to them.
Let everybody in.
No.
No.
Now we're letting y'all in to a small piece of what goes on in our life, and that takes a certain level of risk and trust.
Definitely.
With regard to doing that. There are a lot of people who will look down on us for what we do, as though somehow this lifestyle is less than the traditional American lifestyle where you're crammed inside of a little subdivision in your big old house, in your own little rooms in that big old house, and you're all doing your own thing and you're not interacting as a family.
The family's very important to us.
And you're just on your phone on Facebook. Right.
And is that the life that you desire? If it is, go achieve that. If that's your goal, I'm not here to tell you that's not something you should do. That's not my place.
No.
I'm going to tell you what we've done and why we've chosen to do it.
Put God first, then family.
Yes. We desire, a strong connection with each other, with our community, with our family, with God, obviously above all else.
Yes.
And this lifestyle allows us and permits us to be able to do that.
Even says in the Word, there's even Scripture.
Yes. So we know that what we're choosing is the right choice for us. Maybe it's the right choice for you, and maybe it's not. Yeah. That's something for you to pray about and give serious consideration to. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up because we're losing our daylight.
Yeah. We do have mosquitoes.
We do have other stuff to do. We've actually got to go out and do some of these things. So that's the thing to be mindful of as well. We did kind of take the day off. I had a busy week.
He's been gone. Daddy's finally home.
I was gone all week this past week. I was in North Carolina for a business summit for the job that I do. I worked in a specific arena, and and what I do in that area, and that requires a certain skill set. And every now and again, I have to go and meet with my coworkers, my peers, my colleagues, just to kind of like that the scripture that says that iron sharpens iron, the expression iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens another.
And that's basically what we do. And when we go to these meetings, is that each person talks about their skill set, their ability, what they're working on, and then we kind of grow and build off of each other. Now, how does that apply to Homestead? Well, iron does sharpen iron even on Homestead. Again, it's about trying to duplicate skill sets and abilities, trying to help each person grow. My goal as a father, her goal as a mother, is to help our children to become the best version of themselves that they can be.
That's right.
And the way that we do that is by speaking life into them, by giving them skills and abilities and resources, knowledge that they might otherwise not get, outside of the area and the lifestyle that we've chosen. We've always told them, though, that this lifestyle is still, at the end of the day, it's still a choice that they have got to make for themselves if they want to continue doing it at some point. Our kids are not prisoner in that regard.
Had this conversation.
Yes.
They were coming back from town today.
We did.
So it's kind of funny how it's full circled around today.
We had that conversation, and it's important that your kids know, what are your goals and aspirations, as a family, as a unit, for them, so they understand, hey, look, if you choose to not continue in the homesteading lifestyle, we're not going to love you less.
Like if one of us decided to go to town or something and lived there instead, that
Absolutely.
would be something that we made a choice ourselves. And I realize that they don't hold me or my brother hostage like that.
Right.
But I would like to stay here.
She's always like,
I want to stay here. This is
she
where I want to
wants
raise
to
a
stay
future
here.
kid. This is home for me, and this is where I intend to stay, unless the Lord says it's the other where. But this is where I plan to stay.
So being able to again impart these skills to them is very important. To have these conversations with them is important. Let them know what your dreams are for them, but also talk to them about their dreams, their goals, their ambitions,
and then we are willing to help them reach those goals and dreams. If
it is to have a little house on the property here, for them to be able to have and call their own, hey, what can you do to make that happen?
Yeah.
How can you establish in them the skills and the resources, the abilities to be able to make that happen too? And that way, maybe you take kind of a back seat and let them drive that vehicle to get them to that goal.
Right.
Maybe you take a step back and say, okay, what do we need to do first? Okay, we got to lay out a foundation. How are we doing that? Okay, well, first of all, we've got to set these corners, and we have to have fine square, and we got to set grade, and you let them, kind of lead you through that process to build their own first house. And maybe it won't turn out better. Hopefully it's better than Three Little Pigs.
Hopefully
I would hope so.
Right, hopefully.
Puff and puff.
So help them to build something that's good, and don't be afraid to step in and say, okay, here's the boundaries. I'm not going to let you, crash us into the ditch. I'm not going to let you crash yourself into the ditch. We're going to keep it between the ditches. So let's take a step back. Here's what we got to do to fix this and make this right. Okay, now step back now and let them go ahead, take over again, and maybe you have to rinse and repeat. You got to keep doing that as the project progresses.
It's a good thing too when you do stuff like that too, because it gives us a chance to grow.
Right.
But also other children that are involved, or people like that as parents, it's good for them to give their children a chance to grow as well.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid of letting them outgrow you.
No.
Because if you're doing your job right, one day they will.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of that.
No.
Now, they'll always need you. You'll always be mom and dad.
I need my daddy.
They'll always be our babies.
I need my mom and dad.
Absolutely.
Can't live without y'all.
So they'll always be your kids. They'll always be your children. They'll always be your babies. That'll never change. And they're always going to need you, and you're always going to be there for them. And as long as you know that, as long as they know that, then I think there's some resilience that's baked into the cake now, to where they understand you have their best interest in heart, and you want to see them grow and become the best possible version of themselves that they can be. So with that, we're going to go ahead and cut it out. Thank you very much for joining us for this very long video that I will probably cut into 3 parts because of just, time constraints and length. But thank you so much for being part of this journey with us.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for your feedback, for your questions and comments.
Definitely comment down below if you have any.
If you have comments, questions, thoughts, whatever it is, please leave those below.
We'll try to
we would love to hear from you.
Respond, y'all. Yeah.
Yes, we would love to respond and dialogue with everyone, engage.
Because we may not be able to meet y'all in person, but like at least through the benefit of being online, we can engage with y'all as much as we can through your comment sections and other things.
So, thank you very much. That's all for now. God bless.
Bye.